Hey everyone, today we're doing lesson 11. This is measure of center, and we do have 2 pages in your handout, but we're not going to do all of it. So pay close attention to know what we're going to be working through today. So we're answering this big question, what is the measure of center? We're measuring the center of a group of data. So let's fill this in together. Data can be described by its center, which refers to the mean and or median. Now, hopefully those words sound familiar. A lot of times we use for the word mean, average. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about your um, your grade average. We're talking about mean. If you're talking about someone's average sports stats, we would be talking about the mean, and that's what these two words are kind of interchangeable here. We're also going to talk about median. And first, we're going to separate or differentiate between the two of those. So, to fill in this table here, I'm going to give you just a few notes, a few points. And we have two differences here. We have symmetric data and skewed data. Symmetrical data is like nicely grouped, closely grouped data. And we would use the mean or the average when we were dealing with data like that. Now, what that means is that most of our data in symmetric data is going to be closely grouped around an amount. So we don't have any numbers that are way outside of what we're normally seeing. Now, skewed data would be best measured with the median. And skewed data means it's going to have big differences. So I'm going to refer to like your grade average a lot when we talk about this because I think it's very closely related to the topic and easy to kind of relate to. So with mean, there's a couple things I want you to write down. Um, of course, it shows the center of the data. It's not always a true representation of the data, but we would use with few outliers. Okay, few outliers, and that means use it when we're dealing with closely grouped numbers, nothing that's way out of that range. Okay, remember this is also called average, and um, then we talk about median. Now, median is still the middle of the data, um, but we use it with outliers. This will make sense a little more when we look at some examples. And I think that's good enough for this. All right, so for the next blank, the mean can be thought of as determining the fair share. Okay, now what that means, I think the best analogy I can give you is think of a giant like cooking cauldron in the center of the room. Everybody brings a container of ingredients to put into this cauldron, and it's going to make soup. Okay, so we have one person bring in, and let's say they dump out of their bowl a couple of potatoes, and then someone else brings in and drops in 1 carrot. Someone else brings in 5 onions and puts it into the pot, and so on. And we just combine all of that. And then after the soup's made, we scoop out the same size scoop and give it to everyone, and everybody gets that that taste of the soup. But it's going to combine everybody's ingredients together and then fairly share it out so everyone, even if you only brought 1 carrot, you're still going to get a full bowl of soup just like everybody else. Someone might have brought more ingredients, but they're still kind of sharing it around the group. So that's what we're talking about here. Instead, though, to relate it to your grades, we're talking about bringing in all the points from all your assignments in a quarter. Okay, so you bring in 5 points from this practice problem, you bring in 25 points from this quiz, and it just all goes into one pile of points, and then the average is found. It's fairly shared out to all the assignments that were given. And the way that we do that, and I hope you're familiar with this, is that we get the sum of all points and divide by the number of, I guess we'll say assignments because that's what we're comparing to. Okay, so because we're comparing to grades, now this you can find the average of a lot of things, but because we're talking about grades, we would get the sum of all the points and we divide by the number of assignments. Okay, that again, you would have to just adjust the definition of how to do it to the circumstance a little bit differently. Okay, now let's look at an example to hopefully clear up any confusion. Now, right now we're focusing on mean. On the back half of the worksheet, we'll focus on median. So here we're determining the fair share or the mean or the average of the data below. So I'll do the first one here. It says the table below shows the quiz scores of 6 students. So we're going to be finding the average of these scores of the 6 students. This is something that we would do to find like a class average if there were only 6 students in the class. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is we have to find the sum of all of these scores. We need to combine these. And when you add all of those up, you get a total of 492 points. So between the 6 quiz scores, a total of 492. Now we're going to share it out between the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different students. So we divide it by 6 and get our class average or our group average here of 82. That would be the mean. All right, I want you to try it with the next example here, please. Go ahead and calculate the mean for this situation. Okay, what you should have found is that when you combined all of the candy counts of the 6 kids, you got a total of 210 pieces of candy. Again, shared between the 6 kids equals 35 pieces per child. All right, now onto the back is where we're going to clarify a little bit more about median. So again, this is still finding the middle of a data set, of a group of data. So the median is another measure of center, which is the middle of the data. And this is really important when it's organized from least to greatest. So you have to organize it from least to greatest. Remember, this is the way of finding the middle that works best when there are outliers. So let's take a look. It says determine why someone would claim that 9 is the center of the data below. 9 is the center of the data. So they could be finding the mean or the average like we just talked about, which means they would add up all these quantities and then divide by the number of quantities that there are. But I'm assuming since we just practiced that they must have found the median. It works really good on a diagram like this called a scatter plot or a number plot because already all of our data is organized from least to greatest. So notice the numbers here on the number line. The dots represent how many of those numbers there are. So here we have 2 6s, 2 7s, 2 10s, and 2 12s. Every other number only has 1. All right? Now, what I could do is I could write out these numbers in order from least to greatest. So I would just start with 3. My next number would be 5. See how I'm just counting 3, 5. Now there's 2 6s. So I would write 6 and 6 and keep going. I could do that. But you can actually use these scatter plots to calculate the median without rewriting anything. Okay, I need to find the middle data point in all of this. And to do that, I'm going to work from the outsides to the inside, to the middle. So I'm going to get rid of my lowest number. Remember, this works well with outliers. So a number like 3 would be an outlier because it's far away from the center of the data here. I get rid of the lowest number, I would get rid of the largest number, which again is another outlier. And we're going to keep working into the center. So now I'll get rid of 15 and the next smallest number, which is 5. Get rid of 14 and get rid of 6. And I just keep bouncing back and forth, working my way into the center of the data here. All right, so I'll get rid of another 6 and then a 12, a 7 and the other 12, 7 and 10. And now I'm stuck with 2 points left. So if I cross these both off, I don't have anywhere to go. I'm done with all the data. What I need to think, though, is I'm finding the center of this data. So right now, I've narrowed it down between 8 and 10. And obviously, the center between 8 and 10 is 9. So 9 is my center point here. And that is why 9 is the center of the data below. They found the median. Okay, so we just explained how you do that. You can put that into words down here, which is ordering from least to greatest and then finding the center point. And now let's look at some examples. So I'm going to do the first one again for you before you try it. And it tells us use the data below to determine both the mean and the median, round to the hundredths place. So that's going to be important to remember. All right, so first, mean, something that we've already practiced calculating. Remember, we need to combine everything and then fair share it out to that many groups of where those data points came from. So I'm going to find the sum of all these numbers. That is 497. I'm going to count up how many quantities that was that made that possible. So there were 10 of them, so I'll divide by 10, and that means my median is going to be 449.7. All right, mean's been calculated. Now I need to find the median. All right, now remember that has to be ordered from least to greatest. When a group of numbers is just listed, it's not listed from least to greatest most of the time. So what needs to happen is it needs to be rewritten from least to greatest. Now, it's important that you don't skip a number, because if you were to skip one, you're not going to get the correct median. It's going to throw off the whole thing. So I'll scan this list of numbers, find my lowest number, which is 27, and then I cross it off from the original list. So I know I took care of it. All right, there's no more 20s, now 30s. We've got 33 and 38. 33, 38. Again, least to greatest, and then cross it off. Now 40s, we've got 41 and 42. 50s, we have 52. Then we have 60, 64, and 68. And then finally, 72. All right. So to find the median, I'm just going to work my way, and a list of numbers is very easy to see that. So work my way from outside to the center. So getting rid of my lowest and highest value, my lowest and highest value, continuing. All right, now again, I'm left with 2 numbers. Now sometimes when you do this, you'll get rid of your lowest and highest value until there's just 1 number in the center. And if that's the case, you're good. That's your median. All right, if I were to work my way in and I crossed off 41 and 52, then this would be my median already, but I didn't do that. It's going to be halfway in between these 2 numbers. So between 42 and 52, the span between those, the range between those is 10. Half of that is going to be 5. So 5 more than 42 or 5 less than 52 would be my median. So my median is going to be 47. All right, do something similar here on 4. 5 has another frequency table, frequency chart like we talked about. And 6 is a little bit different in how they're showing it. They've numbered the number of rings from least to greatest, so that's done for you. But then you have to be careful because there's little tick marks, tally marks, marking how many of these numbers there are. So because there are 2 markings below the 3, there are 2 3s in this data set if I were to write it out. Okay, then there's 1 4, 1 5, 2 6s. And again, you can choose to write it out into a list of numbers like we've been using. If you choose not to, these are already in the order from least to greatest if you work from the outside into the center of the data here. Go ahead and calculate those. Before you do so, though, let's look at the next page quickly. So this is going to be the final page that you need to do in the packet before you work on your practice problems. It's these 4 and these 2 questions split over the 2 screens here. But the directions are super important here. It tells you that each blank represents a digit between 0 and 9. Each digit is only used once. So this is like a puzzle. Each of these blanks is going to have one of those digits from 0 to 9. Remember, you can't use one a second time, only one time. And if you look at these first 2 problems, notice that 2 of the blanks are here in the data set, in the list of numbers. That's going to make it really hard to figure out what's missing if we're missing the original data. So what we need to do is we actually need to eliminate some of those number possibilities by starting here. So would you go ahead, since our blanks are here in the means and the medians of all of these, start with these 4 questions first, solve for what's missing, whether it's mean or median, with the data that's included, and then once you've eliminated a lot of those number possibilities, then go back here and start with these, and then finish with these 2 questions with the remaining digits. Now, I would suggest doing this one first to help you problem solve, and then this one second, or last, really. This is going to be the last missing number. So if I were to start here, since we're given the mean, remember the mean was taking all of this data, combining it together, and then dividing it, sharing it equally into that number of data sets, that number of data pieces. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of data. And what we would have done is added all this together, divided by 6 to get 20. So what you need to do is just some simple algebra. So since our sum, or our x, that's what all of this added up together is. All right, since we would divide that by 6 to equal 20, I just need to reverse this one-step equation to start finding what this total for x is, the total sum of all 6 of these numbers, and then it should be pretty easy to find what's missing. Okay, once you've found this, then you should be able to find the median number, and then you only have one number out of that 0 through 9 left to fill in here for the data. So you wouldn't even have to calculate anything with this problem. Okay, I'm happy to help you with this on Zoom. If you have any questions, please just be patient with yourself. It's really important that you learn the difference between mean and median, because we're going to keep talking about that, and just get really familiar with how to calculate it. All right, everybody have a great day.